All right, continuing our discussion here on Open Line on a Thursday night. I'll tell you right now, I am the most overdressed person in this studio right now. As Hugh and the gang prepare for Southern Woods and Waters, we got TWRA here, and here you got the stiff suit. But we appreciate you being here as we continue our discussion. I promised before the break that we would talk about, because you're very excited about this, the Restoring America's Wildlife Act. What is it?
Well, Restoring America's Wildlife Act is a funding source that would give every state wildlife action or every state wildlife agency dedicated funding. So most folks probably know that hunting and fishing licenses basically run our wildlife agencies, especially in Tennessee, and that provides dedicated funding, basically independent funding, for our wildlife and fisheries management. We do not have that for our non-game species, our species that are not hunted, and our species of greatest conservation need.
Sure.
So every year we are allocated a certain amount of money from Congress that funds our programs, but we never know from one year to the next, how much we're going to get. In some years, it's a little nerve-wracking because you'll see a zero there and then Congress will come back and put money back in. Right. So it's hard to plan when you don't know how much money you're going to get from year to year.
This would actually give you a dedicated amount and perhaps increasing as years go on.
Right. So AFWA, the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, asked the biodiversity coordinators in each state, how much money would you need to actually implement your state wildlife action plan? Because we know you have state wildlife action plans. They're all this thick. You've all got hundreds of species of greatest conservation need, and you're only scratching the surface. So how much do you really need? And so right now we get about $850,000 for species of greatest conservation need. We get about $300,000 for endangered species. Okay. And that's if Congress, keeps us at a steady funding. But if we had the money from Recovering America's Wildlife Act, for Tennessee alone, it could be $20 million a year, and that would allow us to purchase land that Roy was talking about that we need for wildlife species.
That's huge.
So that's right. That's huge. So
where is it right now in the pipeline? Do we know?
Well, right now in the pipeline, it has not been introduced into Congress yet. It got very close in the last go round, but it did not before Congress had adjourned. So, but it has not been introduced again. They're working on it.
They're working on it. Okay.
Right, at first they were talking about funding from gas and oil drilling on public lands, but now they're kind of stepping away from that and it being redirected funds from the Treasury. So they're working out the details.
Sure.
The details.
Okay.
But
we'll keep an eye on it.
And last year when it was reaching the Senate, Lamar Alexander was a co-sponsor of it. So his office has been very supportive.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Yes.
Restoring America's Wildlife Act.
That's
you can, if you want to pick up, if you're one of those active people,
call your legislators.
Call your legislator and say, hey, we'd like to see this put through.
We want to help take care of wildlife and their habitat.
Yeah. CW is on line one. Hey, CW, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. How y'all doing?
Doing well. What's on your mind?
I just heard y'all talking about quail and stuff. And,
oh, yeah. We had Roy call in and say that he's not seeing them anymore.
Hey, I tell you what, this place I got here, I've got a part of my timber over here. I got some old ridge timber, old post oak stuff. And I try to burn about 10 acres a year off in different spots.
Yep.
And I've got some pasture up there, and I have eradicated tall fescue.
Tall fescue.
Let you know right now, buddy, there's quail in there.
Okay.
And the places that surround me, the other people around here, that's all they want to pasture. They want to cut hay off of it and all that. And the pastures, because it makes good pasture. I like to overseed with clover. I do got a lot of clover here in Lespedisa and stuff. But there's quail here, and it's a mighty good feeling to come in the evening and see a little covey of quail running across the driveway.
Where do you live, CW? What area?
Western Dixon County.
Western Dixon County. Just so you know, Hugh McNaughton's in the studio. He's listening to you right now. He's like, wait, where's their quail?
He ain't getting my quail, though. He ain't getting them because, hey, the thing is, they'll be here, and it's like nobody else does it, so they just disappear.
Look at that.
I mean, it goes through cycles, And something else I was wondering about there is, the bullfrogs. Bullfrogs are gone.
Okay. Bullfrogs. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear them. There's nothing like they used to be. I used to love to gig frogs, and I've got to where I don't even gig them anymore.
All right. ACW, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Yes.
Right.
Bullfrogs. Interesting that he mentioned that. But like
Right.
you said, managing the land the way he has, and he has plenty of quail.
Right. So when we get ready to manage, we manage for native and a lot of times warm season grasses. And so we do have to eradicate the fescue. That's the first thing that we have to do. I'm an organic person and I do not like to use herbicides, but drastic issues require drastic measures. And so, so we'll go in there with plateau. We'll get rid of the fescue. We'll till it, and then we'll plant native warm season grasses. And then we are trying to return natural burn regimes to habitat. So he's CW doing all the right things. That's wonderful. You're getting rid of fescue. You're planting native grasses, and you're burning. And that's one of the things that we'd love to be able to do with Recovering America's Wildlife Act funds is have a burn team that could go across the state and help people with that management, because most people aren't going to get out there and burn their properties on their own. Liability for one thing.
But they have to be careful, obviously, and know what they're doing and the process.
Right. But if we had a burn team that could work from one end of the state to the other and work on public lands, but also assist private landowners, because most of the land in Tennessee is privately owned, that would be wonderful. So absolutely. Eradicate fescue. I know it's pretty in your yard.
He mentioned he doesn't hear the bullfrogs anymore. Right.
Well, so we have a program called the Tennessee Amphibian Monitoring Program, and we have 48 stations across the state where volunteers go out and they listen for frogs every year, 4 times a year, and they note the species that they hear, and there's a call index to try to give us a relative abundance of whether they're increasing or decreasing, the trend in the numbers of the frogs. We are not seeing that in our data on those 48 sites across the state. And
like
again,
you said, this could be a localized thing for him.
It's just like with the blue jays earlier. It could be that his favorite wetland has dried or filled in. Again, these things require management. If he might have had a great pond 20 years ago, and it's filled in now, and so that could be a local issue. But our frogs in Tennessee are doing well. We don't have any endangered species of frogs in Tennessee. They're actually, a lot of them are actually expanding their range. They like warmer, wetter winters.
Sure, they do.
So our frogs are doing okay.
You mentioned
as far as we know.
This Restoring America's Wildlife Act, if it were to pass and the money coming in, like right away you said we want to buy some land.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're talking about all the private land. Any particular areas, or it's spread out all over the state? It just depends.
We do have priority areas. In our State Wildlife Action Plan, we have what is called conservation opportunity areas. And so, and what makes an area a priority is its proximity to what we already have a lot of the time. So if you want to make a species more resilient, especially those that are mobile, you want to create corridors. You want to increase the size that you have. So it's going to be hard for us to buy large areas of land, but we can add on to what we already have and create corridors. But the Northern Cumberland Plateau, those forests always rank very high as far as a priority because they're still intact. The topography's not allowed them to be developed.
Like Dale Hollow area, or
farther out? Our Royal Blue, the North Cumberland's up in that area as well.
All right.
So we would like to create corridors like that for migratory animals to be able to travel more easily. And mobility and connectivity is one of the most important things that we can ensure that wildlife species have to make them resilient to things like climate change. And we do that with our streams too. So another thing that folks don't realize that TWA does, and other agencies, TWA, TDEC, the Nature Conservancy, we have what is called a Tennessee Aquatic Connectivity Team. And that aquatic connectivity team is, we look at obstructions in streams and barriers in streams that are preventing fish from migrating, fish passage from hellbenders. Our eastern hellbenders is a state endangered species. And so we've removed obstructions like that. A lot of them are low head dams, 15 feet in height, but some of them are small dams, 1.5 feet in height, but they're preventing fish from migrating up the stream and down the stream. And again, without that connectivity, you're decreasing the diversity of their genetics. So,
going to take another quick break. We'll wrap things up right after this. Stay with us.